Global Television Network.
South Africa becomes the first African country to carry out over 1 million coronavirus tests. Beijing continues to report new COVID-19 infections as tens of thousands get tested. And the UN agrees to debate racism and police brutality following a request by African countries. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. We'll bring you the details on those stories in just a moment, but first, here's Ramanyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
That's right, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Gold smuggling in the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to defraud the government of millions of dollars in revenue. And Egypt's airports are set to reopen to international traffic from the 1st of July. We'll have the details on those stories and plenty more in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And let's begin here in Kenya, where 4 workers at State House Nairobi, which is the country's official seat of power, have tested positive for the coronavirus. This has been revealed by State House spokesperson Kanzedena. In a statement on Monday, she said the 4 tested positive following mass COVID-19 testing of workers on Thursday last week. The infected officials have since been admitted at a medical facility on the outskirts of Nairobi for treatment. The spokesperson also said that President Uhuru Kenyatta and the First Family are safe and free of the virus. South Africa has become the first African country to carry out over 1 million coronavirus tests, according to data from the country's health ministry. It reached that milestone in early June. Angelo Coppola has more.
The country's strategy has been to do mass testing to identify the true extent of the spread of the virus. But experts say using that approach poses a problem.
Mass testing is a good thing if you've got the resources to do it. But we don't. There is a shortage of test kits, not only in South Africa, all around the world, but we are competing with America, for example, for these test kits from a variety of different companies.
Health authorities are looking at other options, like contact tracing, until more test kits become available, especially in hotspots.
However, for places like the Western Cape, where we now have a surge in infections, I don't know if contact tracing is useful unless you can get those results within 24 hours.
Healthcare professionals are learning more about this new virus every day, and they say using only one approach to deal with the pandemic isn't the solution.
As a continent, as a country, we need to be very agile and very aware of the changing circumstances and be able to change in accordance with that.
That changing strategy was announced by the South African Health Minister recently. The country is now moving from mass testing to targeted testing in hotspots.
You're probably wasting a lot of tests on people who are negative. Now, by focusing on the hotspot, you are actually getting those people who are probably positive. So I think that is a changing strategy and probably a good one. However, even that, when you are in a situation where you have really constrained resources, it might still be better to reserve those tests for those that really need it.
While South Africa has crossed that million number mark in terms of testing, it's about managing resources and keeping that ammunition dry as we build up to that peak. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Yeovil, South Africa.
Meanwhile, Ghana's health minister has tested positive for COVID-19. The government says his condition is mild and he is recovering in hospital. Ghana's coronavirus infections now stand at almost 12,000. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
The health minister, Kweku Agyeman-Menu, contracted the coronavirus while in the line of duty. He is the first high-profile government official to be diagnosed with COVID-19. According to health officials, the minister has been receiving treatment at the hospital for almost a week now. They say his condition is now stable. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has wished the health minister speedy recovery. The country's infections of the coronavirus have been increasing since the government relaxed lockdown restrictions. The government has made wearing of face masks compulsory at workplaces and all public spaces. But enforcement to safety measures against the spread of the coronavirus has proved difficult. Now, the government has directed the police to enforce the safety measures. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
In Algeria, life is slowly getting back to normal after days of lockdown to curb the spread of the coronavirus. The North African state has recorded over 10,900 cases and over 7,000 recoveries. And as Jane Keo reports, the government has been relaxing some anti-epidemic restrictions.
In the Algerian capital, Algiers, it's a new awakening. As locals resume their daily activities, it's life unusual after days under a lockdown unseen before. For business owners, it's a moment of gratitude as they resume their trade. But some cannot avoid counting their losses as the government begins easing restrictions.
We welcome the decision to ease restrictions by the government. My store is opening after 2 months of quarantine. For us as traders, it was very difficult. Personally, I recorded a big loss. I'd prayed for this moment. I'd call upon the government to take all measures to curb the threat of COVID-19.
As a citizen, it was not easy for us to keep stores closed for such a long time. It affected us citizens and the traders a lot. Some traders are close to bankruptcy, and easing restrictions is timely.
So far, public transport has resumed in major cities. The state has also ended curfews in 19 provinces and reviewed hours in others. In Algiers, the movement has been restricted between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. instead of the previous 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. According to a statement from the Prime Minister's office, public transport has also resumed under stringent measures. Taxi operators have also been restricted to carry only one passenger per trip. Authorities have also ended a paid leave to civil servants implemented in March. However, expectant women and those with small children will continue enjoying their leave. Jane Keo, CGTN.
In Beijing, there are concerns that the Chinese capital may experience a large outbreak of the coronavirus. Dozens of new infections were identified in the city over the weekend, and authorities say they're doing all they can to minimize the spread. Rory Cohen has more.
It's been 4 days since the cluster was detected. Beijing officials said 36 new locally transmitted cases on Sunday brought the overall total from this outbreak to 79. The Chinese capital is back on high alert.
All communities must initiate a level 3 response. All entrances must be guarded around the clock. Temperature checks and public space disinfection must be put back into routine. Indoor space for cultural and entertainment activities should be suspended.
The cases are all linked to a wholesale food outlet in the south of the city. Xinfadi Market is known as Beijing's food basket, but it has since been closed. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of nucleic acid tests have been carried out to root out those who have been infected. Beijing's Youan Hospital has been a hive of activity, but locals remain optimistic, however, that the city can put a quick cap on the outbreak.
I came here 2 days ago and I feel a bit worried, but now there's not too many people on public transportation, so I think it will be enough if we protect ourselves well.
I think the response is very fast. The parameters have already been locked, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. And I think it's necessary to take precautions, like wearing face masks in the open air.
Beijing had reported 0 local transmissions for 56 days before June 11th. This fresh outbreak is a wake-up call for cities all around the world that this pandemic won't be put out so easily. Rory Cohn, CGTN.
Wedding halls in New Delhi have been turned into COVID-19 quarantine centers for infected patients. The move comes as the number of cases continues to mount in the Indian capital. Hospitals say they're running out of beds, but large wedding halls are now being used to treat patients. India is seeing a huge spike in cases as it reopens its battered economy. Europe has started reopening most of its borders to fellow Europeans after a 3-month coronavirus lockdown. This comes as cases have declined in recent weeks. Many European governments have been keen on lifting restrictions to boost their economies. Belgium, France, Germany, Greece and Ukraine are among those opening their borders today. Shops and outdoor attractions in England are also set to welcome their first customers. Meanwhile, the European Commission has launched a website to inform travelers of safety measures and travel restrictions across the continent. The United Nations top human rights body is set to hold an urgent debate this week on racism and police brutality. This comes at the request of African nations and in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd in the United States. Only 4 of such debates have been held by the UN Human Rights Council. Most of them were on Syria. In South Africa, the presence of colonial-era statues continues to cast a dark shadow over a country that's still struggling to deal with race-related issues. Among the most prominent statues are those of Cecil Rhodes, a colonial figure known for his advocacy for greater imperial British rule in Africa. In 2015, widespread student demonstrations at the University of Cape Town led to the removal of his statue from the campus. 5 years later, just what has changed over there? CGTN's Travis Andrews has that report.
Cecil Rhodes, a colonial-era politician who was one of the epitomes of South Africa's racialized past. And here in Cape Town, the Rhodes Memorial still stands as a reminder of the impact colonialism has brought to these shores. A statue of Cecil Rhodes also once adorned the University of Cape Town campus, but that's at least until students formed the Rhodes Must Fall movement, which called for the removal of his statue.
That particular special meeting, the UCT Council in April of that year did vote in favor of removing the statue. What then that meant was that it concluded, at least at that point in time, a month-long series of activities and developments on campus and engagements, of course, where there were debates around statues and symbols.
Statues of Cecil Rhodes particularly spark a variety of emotions for different people, thanks to his historical views on race.
Workers in his diamond mines in Kimberley, that he would use the money he had not paid them as wages to endow the University of the Future, which he described in very racist terms.
But even with a melting pot of cultures, there are still some roads that bear the names of figures associated with the colonial era. But change is taking place, and prominent political figures such as the late President Nelson Mandela are being immortalized through statues in the city, and old ones associated with oppression are falling.
Very slowly, there have been around the country statues mostly of Verwoerd that have been taken down, and they've been sent to one of 2 destinations. Either they've been donated to Oranje, this little Afrikaner-only town and farm on the Orange River banks, or else they've been donated to the Voortrekker Monument, which has a basement where all these fallen statues are being kept.
For now, there's a growing call for more and more of these statues to see out their days in museums rather than streets, where proper historical context can be given and where remembrance and educational value can be extracted. For many people here, the impact of colonial-era statues only enters the social discourse when events of race come to the fore, such as the Black Lives Matter movement. But these figures don't reflect the society of today. It only acts as a reminder of the long journey and sacrifices many have made to make South Africa what it is today, a country that continues to work towards social cohesion and non-racialism. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Tunisia calls for more dialogue to end fighting in neighboring Libya. And we tell you how African countries joined the world in observing World Blood Donor Day.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Well, let's go to Somalia now, where talks between the central government and the breakaway region of Somaliland have resumed in Djibouti, with both teams expected to issue a formal statement in the coming days. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo is keeping tabs on the talks and filed this report from Mogadishu.
Djibouti is hosting the first round of talks between the federal government of Somalia and Somaliland, a breakaway region in northern Somalia. Both sides are meeting for the first time in 5 years after previous talks failed to make a breakthrough. Djibouti President Ismail Omar Gele and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali are attending the talks. Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo is leading the talks, while the country's Prime Minister and Speaker of Parliament are also in attendance. President Musa Bihi Abdi is leading the Somaliland delegation.
My brother Bihi and I are here to make very tough decisions so that our people will have a better and prosperous future.
For close to 3 decades, Somaliland has been seeking global recognition while claiming independence from Somalia after the eruption of a civil war in the early 90s. It's now insisting on a two-state solution.
Somaliland remains committed to peaceful coexistence with Somalia. However, Somaliland insists in that the dialogue should be a two-state process with a substantive agenda that addresses the core issues of the dispute. We cordially propose that a serious mediation mechanism and a guarantor should be in place for this new round dialogue.
Representatives from the European Union, regional bloc IGAD, and the US are attending the talks in Djibouti. Previously, Turkey hosted the talks. In February, the Somali president issued a rare apology for crimes committed by the Horn of African Nations military regime in the breakaway state decades ago.
Indeed, we are here today to open a long-awaited historical talk between federal government of Somalia and Somaliland government to renew our commitment for open and honest dialogue on future relations to achieve long-lasting peace and prosperity for our society.
Delegates have agreed on the need for further dialogue, with talks expected to last until Wednesday. A committee is expected to be formed to spearhead any technical aspect of the talks, with Djibouti picked as the preferred venue for all future talks. The biggest agreement reached so far is agreeing to end the politicization of foreign investment. For years, the Somali government has been opposed to direct foreign investment in the region after Somaliland signed a multi-million-dollar deal to expand the port of Berbera by United Arab Emirates-based ports operator DP World. Striking any major deal might prove challenging for both leaders at the moment, with general elections planned for later this year. For now, locals have welcomed the resumption of talks as a step forward in ending decades of mistrust. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Tunisia says it is committed to a peaceful resolution of the Libyan conflict. Foreign Minister Noureddin Errais has called for more dialogue to end the fighting in the neighboring nation, saying Libya's stability is crucial for Tunisia's well-being. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi has the details.
Tunisia's foreign minister took part in a UN Security Council video conference meeting.
Tunisia tabled several proposals on how to tackle the unfolding situation in Libya.
The Libyan file is a top priority for the Tunisian presidency, the Prime Ministry and the Foreign Ministry for many reasons. Our ties with Libya are strategic, historical, cultural and economic interests are significant. Tunisia supports international legitimacy and the rule of law in Libya.
The foreign minister says Tunisia is concerned about the ongoing unrest in Libya. Ray has warned that Tunisia's security will remain threatened as long as Libyans do not come together and reconcile.
Tunisia is pushing for a peaceful settlement and a lasting solution between Libyans. Any foreign interference is rejected. The unity and territorial integrity of this brotherly country is at stake. The security of the Libyans is not negotiable. The President and the Prime Minister say Libya's security is a Tunisian national security concern.
The President of the Defense and Security Commission at the Tunisian Parliament warned that mounting violence in neighboring Libya will only deepen the crisis and affect political stability in the region.
The tension in Libya and reliance on military might and force will not solve the problem in Libya. Tunisia invites all Libyan parties and stakeholders to sit on the negotiating table. Dialogue is the only solution. Otherwise, Libya could be divided, weakened and fragmented.
The Security Council announced that it had unanimously decided to extend for 1 year a series of authorizations for member states to inspect vessels on the high seas off the coast of Libya suspected of violating that country's arms embargo. Tunisian President Kais Saied has informed his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in a recent telephone conversation that Tunisia will remain committed to international legitimacy. The North African state is also committed to a peaceful settlement and will not serve the interests of any foreign power in Libya. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
It's World Blood Donor Day today, and in Nigeria, patients who need emergency blood transfusions cannot always get them. The shortage risks the lives of patients as the nation falls behind on meeting blood demand. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam brings us the story of one organization trying to create a culture of voluntary blood donation.
35-year-old Nigerian Lydia Ghana suffers from sickle cell anemia. The life-threatening disorder means there's a shortage of healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen in her body. Lydia knows what it's like to depend on blood transfusion to survive. Since her first sickle cell crisis at age 3, the constant trips to hospital have been traumatizing. But what frightens Lydia most is the long wait for costly blood donations.
Usually, for me, the person who donates blood for me used to be my mom, but she's of age now, and so she can't really donate blood for me. You know, it's hard. It's hard when you walk into a hospital and then you need blood immediately. You have to buy blood. The whole process is messy, and this is I don't think it's right. Blood isn't something that you should trade with.
According to the World Health Organization, Nigeria has one of the lowest blood donation rates in the world. Its 200 million strong population has an annual blood demand of 2 million units, but it barely meets 25% of that demand. WHO says that only 10% of donors do it for free, 60% do it for money or other gains, while 30% only donate to family members. But Haima Health Initiative, a non-profit blood bank organization, is seeking to change this narrative. The initiative uses digital technology to save lives like Lydia's by connecting hospitals and patients with donors. The network already has more than 1,000 donor subscribers who have given 300 pints of blood.
I'm actually a sickle cell patient, so this initiative is kind of personal to me because I understand how it is getting blood. Whenever we fall sick, we help get donors through our database. We have a database where people sign up to be a voluntary blood donor, and whenever there's a blood request, we go to our database and check for the matching blood group and the blood donor. Then we call the blood donors and give them the address of the hospital, and they go donate blood. We've been using social media lately, social media and then phone calls.
One of the major things the organization seeks to do is overcoming the myths many Nigerians believe about blood and blood donations, and their campaigns are inspiring more to donate.
I realize each time I donate blood, I feel good. So that's what actually inspires me, because I feel I'm saving life as a first aider.
If you're donating blood, you are saving lives. Number two, you give your body an opportunity to form new cells. A voluntary blood donor will have a lower incidence of having cancers, of having cardiac problems too.
A WHO study in 2019 shows Nigeria's blood collection capacity is at an average 600,000 units per annum, grossly insufficient for its population of 200 million. Without a cultural shift to voluntary donations, the country may struggle to meet its demand for life-saving blood transfusions. Kelechi Emekalam, CGT and Abuja, Nigeria.
Stocks at Zimbabwe's National Blood Bank are running low due to the coronavirus pandemic, which disrupted blood donation drives. Some patients who need blood transfusions have been turned away from hospitals that have not received supplies for the past few weeks. CGTN's Frime Wakatuya has the details.
A small prick begins a flow of blood which could be the difference between life and death for some.
If you think about it, this is one of the only ways you can actually save someone's life without doing a lot. Like you don't actively have to do anything, but the effects are incredible.
But recently, donors haven't been able to give blood, and the equipment to process it has been held up.
Due to COVID-19 and the limited cargo services, we had our critical consumables which were coming from outside the country and got delayed for about 2 weeks. And this greatly affected us because the consignment that we were expecting was carrying things such as the test kits, which are very critical. Without them, you're not able to test for the blood.
Deliveries to public hospitals have been suspended, endangering some patients, like delivering mothers who may need transfusion.
The stocks are limited. So you find that the stock which is available may be for very, very critical cases. But now, because the consumables have come in, we should see that improving now, because we're able to then improve in terms of our supply. And eventually, maybe in the coming week, we are back at, above 90% or so supply of blood to the hospitals.
Zimbabwe is also keen to shore up a dwindling number of blood donors. These are the names of centurions, people who've made 100 blood donations or more. To reach this milestone requires at least 25 years, and so that's why the National Blood Service is always reaching out to younger donors and is now being encouraged to use the platforms on which they are most active.
A lot of kids spend time on social media and stuff like that. I think if there was advertising done on there, it wouldn't. So maybe even if it didn't attract new people, it would remind people like me and my friends who have done it before that, hey, it's been a while. Why don't you come by and give blood? And, you're always scrolling through Instagram. Seeing something like that would remind you, I think.
A revamped outreach plan will also see the blood service go into rural areas to attract new donors. Frime Wakatuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Now, with travel beyond borders halted and gatherings restricted, the tourism industry across the world has suffered greatly. Kenya is one of the countries now making use of the digital space to share the unique sights and sounds that tourists, both local and domestic, can enjoy once travel resumes. Wilkis Tanyabwa tells us more.
The two cats prowl across the grassland, at once as exciting as they are frightening. A human being wouldn't stand a chance in a race against them, but the observer is never at risk. The cats are prowling in the wild, hundreds of kilometers away, as would-be tourists watch from the safety of their homes. In the face of a worldwide pandemic that has caused countries across the globe to close their borders and restrict travel, tourism in Kenya has gone online.
If you go out of sight and you go out of mind, the challenge is, as a destination, or even when you want to come back, it means that you're going to have to invest a lot more in terms of getting people to, first of all, remember that you exist, but also remember what you exist for.
Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Najib Balala, launched a virtual live stream showcasing game safaris and other unique cultural experiences across the country. The Kenya Tourism Board has deployed a team that will travel across the country for 6 weeks. Every day they stream on social media the best of what Kenya has to offer tourists.
The challenge we had is travel is about an experience that people have. An experience is something you have to be able to feel, to touch, to be around. So we had to find a mechanism to be able to bring that experience to people's home.
The tourism sector has been hit hard by the outbreak of COVID-19. Hotels and many tourist attractions have been forced to shut down and send workers home. Kenya is the third largest travel and tourism economy in Africa after South Africa and Nigeria. In select facilities, only a few workers remain, some guarding the wildlife against poachers. But with the daily live feed, viewers have had the opportunity to get closer to sites without the disruption of crowds. And stakeholders acknowledge that this is likely to impact tourist choices even after travel resumes.
They will be much more interested in experiences that are a lot more enriching, a lot more informative, a lot more collaborative, experiences that make a difference in places that they go to.
And when they return, the country will be waiting. Even as the world grapples with the pandemic, Kenya's tourism sector is keen to remind travelers of the magic that awaits them once travel resumes, and stakeholders are now tapping into digital tools to ensure that even after the pandemic, travelers will enjoy a fuller, richer travel experience. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, let's now take a look at your business news. Here's Ramanya. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. Gold smuggling in the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to defraud the government of millions of dollars in revenue. And Egypt's airports will reopen from the 1st of July to international traffic.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. A UN investigation has unearthed a network smuggling gold from the Democratic Republic of Congo, especially the eastern end of it, into global supply chains. That report details how illegal exports of the precious metal to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as well as into Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania and Uganda took place, and how the proceeds from those sales were laundered. The UN probe estimates that at least 1.1 tons of gold was smuggled out of Ituri province just in 2019. That would have earned the government up to $1.88 million in tax service if it had been legally exported. The DRC has been counting millions in losses as trade in the precious metal continues to fuel regional conflicts and fund rebel fighters. It has also led to UN sanctions on traders involved. In North Africa, Egypt will reopen all its airports on the 1st of July. The North African state suspended all regular international flights in late March as COVID-19 exploded right around the world. The country's aviation minister, Mohamed Mana Anbar, says that tourism will be limited, however, to resorts in 3 coastal airports. He says that the government has put in place mitigating measures to be taken inside planes, at airports and in hotels in order to help ensure the safety and health of any foreign tourists. Tourists from countries with high COVID-19 caseloads will be required to be tested before they come to Egypt. At the moment, Egypt has over 44,500 positive cases of COVID-19. The pathogen has killed over 1,500 people there.
Hopefully, on July the 1st, we will resume flights in all airports of the Republic. Perhaps there was some confusion the last period. Tourism will be on the coastal cities, as the Minister of Tourism will explain. Regarding all other airports, flights will resume gradually alongside the countries that intend to reopen with us on July the 1st.
On July 1st, as His Excellency the Minister of Aviation has said, we will begin to receive tourists in only 3 provinces to begin with. Those 3 provinces are South Sinai, Red Sea and the Matru. These 3 provinces were chosen because they are coastal cities and are far away from large population gatherings. They also have some of the least coronavirus cases around the country.
Egypt's neighbor to the south, Sudan, is expected to keep its airports closed to international and domestic commercial flights at least until the 28th of June. The country shut down airports back in March as part of measures designed to slow down the spread of COVID-19. Sudan's Civil Authority spokesperson Abdul Hafiz Abdul Rahim says that airports will only be reopened to flights transporting cargo, humanitarian aid, oil workers or evacuating foreigners. Sudan has the highest reported caseload in the region, with about a quarter of the near 27,000 cases that we have in the east and the Horn of Africa. Still in Sudan, the government there is expected to start rolling out an experimental program of direct cash transfers to its neediest citizens. Now, this is part of a wider set of policy efforts to wean the country of costly and unsustainable subsidies. Under the pilot program, the government will transfer $9 per person each month, starting in Khartoum's West Soba district. The cash payments are expected to be adjusted for inflation, which at the moment is about 100%. The government recently started talks with the IMF. Those talks could eventually pave way for a financial support program. Sudan's foreign debt load is estimated to be about $62 billion at the moment. Speaking of debt issues, Zambia has requested the Paris Club of Creditor Nations to allow the suspension of principal and interest payments on debt to all of its official bilateral creditors. Now, the payments in question are scheduled to take place between May and end December. Despite struggling with a fall in demand for copper, Africa's second largest producer of that commodity says it is still committed to servicing debt payments which fell due before the 1st of May. Zambia's external debt rose to about 45% of GDP last year, up from 37% in 2018. According to the World Bank, Zambia's total debt stock is estimated to be equal to about 89% of total economic output. The country is among nations eligible for debt relief under the debt service suspension, which aims to help nations respond to the economic damage caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Away from sovereign credit matters, Kenya's biggest telecommunications operator, Safaricom, currently dominates the mobile financial services market, and it hopes a venture into agriculture might provide it with its next big win. As CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar now explains, DigiFarm could be the safe haven that farmers have been looking for.
Kenyan farmers situated in the Rift Valley town of Bomet are celebrating their most bountiful harvest yet, thanks to DigiFarm. This is the latest innovation by Kenya's biggest telecoms operator, Safaricom. It allows farmers to receive loans to buy seeds, pesticides and fertilizer.
They, Safaricom DigiFarm, have really helped us. They give us maize seeds and fertilizer that we have utilized, and our maize grew.
We had not planted or harvested any maize here for the last 6 years. So when they came and gave us seeds and followed up with training on how to farm better, we have benefited from it, and we're proud of this program.
Under this program, farmers are granted $100 of credit per acre of maize. This is then repaid with 15% interest once the crop is sold. Once the maize is collected, DigiFarm organizes for a buyer who pays 31 US cents per kilogram of maize, up from 28 US cents offered by traditional brokers.
DigiFarm was the idea is to take the small-scale farmer out of the cycle of poverty by allowing or providing a way in which small-scale farmers could borrow money, buy high-quality input, help farmers manage the growth period, and then buy the crop at the end, and so that the farmer could get a good price for their crop and repay the loan and then go through another cycle where they'd get more money, etc., etc.
The farmer benefits a lot because this one reports better than, unlike manual where I could write down and then I take the papers to the office. This paperwork involves a lot of work. So with this one, as I aggregate here, all the information goes there, and then the farmers are paid within 7 hours.
Despite concerns looming over climate change, DigiFarm offers farmers insurance against weather disasters. About 1,000 farmers enrolled with DigiFarm are getting payouts after floods destroyed their crops. With farming accounting for a third of the country's annual economic output, DigiFarm could be the haven that farmers have been seeking in recent years. Mohammed Abubakar, CGTN.
Now, for over 60 years, this event has been home to an immense amount of trading and excitement, but it's happening exclusively online this year. We're talking about southern China's Canton Fair. It's an event which will be accessible to just about anyone online with, of course, an internet connection. CGTN's Li Jianhua has a preview.
Images from 2019's Canton Fair show how different the world was one short year ago. The venues were bustling with business professionals, but now all quiet due to the coronavirus pandemic. As an alternative, business owners are promoting their products online for this year's Canton Fair. This company jumped on the bandwagon when the epidemic first erupted in January.
An online Canton Fair enables us to reach out to more customers. Some customers didn't have a chance to come to the event before, but this time we can talk to our customers or our customers' customers. It was unthinkable in the past. Now, those who couldn't come to China before can join us from home.
This meeting room has gathered engineers from Tencent who built up this online platform to make sure online business meetings and transactions can go smoothly.
We're providing simultaneous translation to facilitate communication between exhibitors and buyers. Also, Tencent provides services of video meetings so that business dealers can talk face-to-face. Internet safety is our priority, and we have provided the best team to ensure the safety of Canton Fair's online operation.
Experts also believe that online exhibitions can serve as a complement to conventional brick-and-mortar stores in the future.
I believe their services will be constantly upgraded, which will better the experience of online sales and purchases. In the future, online services will prove to be complementary to offline sales.
And this year might be a turning point for Canton Fair to explore new options and provide modern services for global business professionals. Li Jianhua, CG.
For the airline and, of course, the wide implications for Kenya's tourism sector. See you at 1800 GMT for that and plenty more. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead.
Here in Canton, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
As the world grapples with COVID-19, artists have been reflecting this new reality in their work. One artist in Kenya is creating thought-provoking pieces aimed at fostering hope for Africa's future. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports.
From the brush strokes, the figure takes form. A woman nursing her children in normal times isn't anything out of the ordinary, but the mask the African woman in the picture wears adds a twist to the tale. And those are the details that spark the discussion that Del Kotengo is trying to start in a world battling the COVID-19 pandemic. Years of practice have led him to this moment.
My earliest memory of painting was when I was 13, around 13 years, design.
Dale went into theatre designing sets and then into film as a creative director for 14 years. Then he decided to return to his roots.
And I felt at this point that I needed to come back to my art and tell my own stories, the stories that actually impact my life.
Now in his workshop, he weaves tales about issues close to his heart. And when the COVID-19 pandemic struck the world, Dale decided to speak about it through his art. The woman with the mask is one of his most recent pieces. She represents the African mother, showing the continuity of life during what is a turning point for both Africa and the world.
My discussion is how the African population, the African people have actually learned from this experience, and right now it's out there, and again, it's something that will never, after this pandemic, this will never change, it will never go away. It's more of the education of the African people, the fact that our lives are valuable.
Through the use of bright colors and colorful African fabric, the artist promotes African scenery and the vibrant culture of the continent. And through his art, he also hopes to convey the message of resilience and Africa's ability to overcome COVID-19 if its people work together.
So that painting, I combine all those things together, talking about the pandemic itself, the race platform, the understanding of the African people and its culture.
Wherever his pieces find a home, he hopes they will inspire change in how the continent views itself and how it approaches a crisis. And he hopes these changes will last beyond the pandemic. An artist will tell you that the message behind a piece of art is whatever message that you, the viewer, assign to it. But for this artist, during this time, it is important that his artwork paints a picture of hope and transformation on the African continent during this time of COVID-19. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN, in Kiserian, Kenya.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. Yanga beat Mwadui 1-0 as post-COVID-19 mainland Premier League football resumes in Tanzania.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
And we start your sport in Tanzania, where record champions Yanga SC edged Mwadui FC 1-0 at Kambarage Stadium in Shinyanga in the country's first mainland Premier League match as football...
Yanga has made a good start to the Premier League after its resumption. 3 friendly matches a week before came in handy in its match against Mwadui FC. They are now third on the table with 54 points, 18 behind Simba Sports Club, who currently top the league table. Fans feel that the quality of football shown on the pitch makes them the best club in the country.
You know, Simba and Yanga are rivals. We could play the best football, but Simba can dismiss it, and they can play the best football, and I would do the same because we don't wish each other well. But the best team is known. It's Yanga.
Having set a goal of achieving maximum points in its remaining matches, Yanga now wants to win an away match against JKT on the 17th of June. While Yanga may not be able to close the point gap with Simba, this sports analyst believes Yanga's continued success on the pitch may have long-term benefits.
Their win was very meaningful. The only remaining title to be taken is the Azam Sports Federation title. It gives Yanga an opportunity to take part in international competitions next season.
While football fans in Dar es Salaam believe league-topping Simba Soccer Club will win the league trophy, there is still debate on which is the best club in Tanzania. What all fans can agree on is that they are happy that football leagues have resumed.
Having dominated for most of the season, Simba fans feel there is no debate on who the best team in the country is. For them, lifting the league trophy seems almost certain. Fans of the club see the remaining matches as a mere formality.
If you look at our players, fans, and Simba's name, it still has what it takes to win and become Premier League champions in Tanzania.
With social distancing, face masks and hand washing a requirement to attend matches, the end of restrictions on sporting activities has brought a new reality to Tanzanian football.
We are told that fans must observe social distancing. This is a very new thing in football, but because the COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives, we have no choice but to get used to this.
3 months without league matches doesn't appear to have dampened fans' enthusiasm for the sport. They eagerly follow each match, awaiting the crowning of the league champions in the near future. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
UEFA is expected